Welcome back to the Invisible Friction podcast. Morten, in the last episode, you gave us a glimpse of what your leadership looked like in practice. You talked about caring less about how many hours people worked and more about the outcome they created. You talked about people setting their own contribution to a larger goal and often over-delivering. But that raises an obvious question. If you, I think then you controlled less, how did you make sure that the freedom this doesn't just simply become ambiguity, inconsistency, or lower performance? So today, I don't want to talk about trust as an idea. I want to understand how you actually made it work.
Yes. A lot of trial and errors. I failed many times. I had to eat up my own words. I had bosses that got angry with me. But I think there's one thing that has to be clarified. I don't think I necessarily controlled less or had less control, but I didn't micromanage. I didn't look over people's shoulders telling them what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and why to do it. So perhaps we should apply less micromanagement to let people do, to let people fail, actually, so we know where we have weaknesses. So we can see where we can actually improve. And of course, you have to then, know you cannot allow somebody to walk off a roof and die, right? It's not that kind of weaknesses, but see where we have weak links. So I think the first step was that we needed to have outcome clarity. How is, or what is it that the desired outcome is, and by when, and what does success look like for people? And success can be, yes, we changed this belt in this AC unit in the server room. Or success can be, yes, we didn't have a single slip, trip, and fall when it was snowing this winter or this weekend. So we had to set that first, the outcome clarity. What are the different outcomes that we're looking for? And then you go backwards. Once you know what the outcome is, you start going backwards. Okay, how do we reach this outcome? Instead of doing like we traditionally do in the corporate world, that we today set the goal here and then we work, what do we need to do to get there? Instead of this is where we're going, and then you go backwards. What are the different steps we need to do? Then, of course, you need to set, different boundaries to people, because, they couldn't, if you say that they have to have no snow on the sidewalks, that's the desired outcome, so people don't slip and trip. They cannot go out and hire 50 people to do it. There are certain financial means and regulations we have to stay within. So you have to set those boundaries, and people need to understand what the boundaries are. And those are there for a reason. Safety, financial, operational, contractual, etc. And then once you have set those boundaries, you have the different decisions. Because I think that is one of the key things that I learned early on. Because with micromanagement, you take somehow the decision making away from a person who is doing it. Because that person then becomes dependent on the leader of the micromanager, because they don't dare to make decisions because they think that they're making the wrong decision all the time. So you have to give up power or control in the way that it comes to decisions. So if you come out there, you send them out. The traditional thing was that you shovel snow. We'll come back to the snow example here. You shovel. But when it comes to then the decision rights, you can then have them decide, okay, it's snowing so much I have to throw down ice melt, or we need to have a snow plow, or I can use a shovel, or I can use a broom, and just sweep it away. So that decision making is given, or decision right is given to the person conducting the work. Because when I came into this world, it was like in the scope of work, it said, you need to shovel the sidewalk 3 times a day. I mean, what does that do? You shovel it 3 times a day and then it snows 10 centimeters every hour.
That's a very good example of being clear about the outcome
Yeah,
and also what is success.
exactly. And we come back to that because I was so amazed when I came here, because there were people that came to me and said, is it okay if I go out to the parking lot to see how much snow has, accumulated? And I'm like, and why are you asking me this? Of course, you can do that.
Yeah.
So they did that. And then, of course, what is very important is information and feedback. So if they're doing it right, if they're doing a good job, and I'm a firm believer of, if you don't do things in the best way or the right way that will make it safer for you, easier for you, or it's not a good outcome that has been reached, you can deliver feedback in positive ways. It doesn't have to be yelling, screaming. So I had to come up with ways that I gave negative feedback for improvement in a positive way, because it motivated them to go out and do a better job.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if they do a really good job, you have to praise them. You have to show them that you're really happy with what they have done, because then they take pride in what they're doing. And even, people look down, or there are some people in this world that look down at people that are street sweepers and stuff. They're not as important as other people, but pride is what makes a person feel important. If you give them feedback and such that they're doing a really good job, it doesn't matter if they clean toilets or if they clean data centers or whatever they do. It's pride. So I think it's important when you give a positive feedback, because there is pride. People feel proud of what they're doing, and it doesn't matter what they're doing. If they feel proud of it, they have accomplished something and they feel good, instead of being looked down at as, wow, you're just a this or that. But if you do a good job, well, it's amazing.
So what I have heard you said until now is that you said in the beginning, maybe it was not less control, but less controlling. And then
Yes.
what came to my mind is that it's different to control and follow up.
Yeah.
So you still followed up and made sure that it was the right outcome.
Yeah, end of the day, in the roles I've had, I mean, I carry the ultimate responsibility for the work being done, right? So I need to ensure that it was done in case I was asked. Many times I would not have needed to go and check that it was done, because I trusted my teammates, and if they came to me and said that they had done it, I trusted them that they had done it. There were certain things when we had power panels and things like that. Some of the data centers we managed, if we dropped the data center, I think we had to pay a penalty of $100,000 for every 15 minutes that it was down. And this is like 20 years ago, so it's a lot of money. And there, of course, I would be completely chewed out if we had done that. But I didn't have to be there to tell my people what to do every single step. You have to be very flexible with it, but you have to step away from micromanagement, because micromanagement never solves anything.
No, I mean, that creates the learned helplessness that I think a lot of organizations are suffering from.
Yeah.
Because then you, as an employee, you stop think yourself.
Yeah.
You just take the orders and do what you are told to do, and you stop think yourself.
Yeah.
You don't use your common sense anymore. And
No.
another thing that came to my mind, if you said the decision making is closer to the work that should be done, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you go a bit ahead of one step further from that, that will also what will happen is that could happen, probably happen, is that they won't solve their task the way you should have done it.
Yeah.
They will make it differently. And I
Yeah.
mean, if you have, I talked to another manager earlier today, that is also could be a bit tricky. How do you, then you need to be quite secure in yourself and open-minded and see, okay, you could solve and deliver this outcome in that way.
Yeah.
How have you managed that? Because I think that could be quite hard.
It's difficult, but it's very interesting as well. I'm an engineer by personality and by education, so I think of everything in logical, practical squares and boxes and linear processes and such. And I come from a family where, architect and design and finance, my parents, they were kind of sharing that. So combining that engineering thing that I was stuck in with seeing something from a artistic point of view, it was like, you cannot do it that way. And then it works out. And like, oh, you can. So I think I learned a lot. And still today in my personal life, I learn a lot because I live with a very artistic person that we have fascinating discussions if it should be straight line engineering or artistic way. And I learned a lot because, yes, as you said, it takes, I would say that it takes self-discipline not to go in and tell them that you have to do it the way you think it should be done. And I think that's the thing, right? Because it's the outcome that is important.
Yeah.
And like we said last time, if you clean a room with a robot or with 500 people, as long as the outcome is a clean room, the task has been completed. If you stay within the boundaries and within the desired outcome. So there were many times I had to bite my tongue or walk away and admit to myself that my way is not the best way, even though I of course thought that it was. No, I didn't. But it's very hard because you really have to open up your mind. And I think I learned quite a bit. But what you said, the learned helplessness was amazing, because when you gave the people the reins to do it themselves, they were shocked. They were like, yeah, but I don't know how to do that. I've never been asked to do this on my own. People have always told me. And it was as if they were handicapped somehow, that they couldn't do it. So you really had to hold their hands to guide them through that. No, you're okay. You can do it. You don't need me.
But another question about outcome, because I know I know how hard it is to get people to understand, for example, an outcome in the same way, because we have so different thinking patterns, different ways of how we perceive words and stuff like that. How did you work to get the alignment around the outcome and the boundaries as well? I mean, what's okay and what is not okay? I mean, that is it's not just that you tell it once and then everybody have the same picture of it as you have.
No, I mean, you have to define what clean is. For example,
Yeah.
you have to define what a swept sidewalk looks like, right? So because we all have different, definitions of what clean is. Some people think that clean is that all the, papers are lying in a nice stack on the table. Some people think that, you need to move everything and dust everything off and wipe the windows and everything. So you need to define that. And the best way of doing that, I have learned, I did not necessarily do this all the time in my career, is to do it together with the team, to define,
Yeah.
open up for the discussion. What do you think is clean? And then you have the sessions that we call the beyond boundaries facilitation, where you have people come up with what the challenge is and what the solution is and how you then define what that is. And once you have come to definition that, okay, this is clean or this is a safe sidewalk, you now have a concept and everybody knows and has agreed that this is what it is.
But
Because,
then you invested the time for this kind of conversations, because I mean, this is, I think, what we miss in many organizations today, that we don't have this like proactive discussions and getting that alignment about what do we mean with clean
yeah, I think,
table, for example.
yeah, I think a lot of leaders and managers that I have seen and worked with, and I think a lot of them, they take for granted or assume many things, and assumptions can kill a business, right? They think that just because I know or define clean like this, everybody else should do it. Or just because I know what this is, everybody else should know what it is. And I think we fail very often with that we, just because we are aware of it, that we understand what the direction is or what the client wants, everybody else also understands it. And that's very seldom the case. So you need to have that inclusion or involvement where you discuss it, like, do everybody understand? In Sodexo we implemented something that was called a safety huddle every morning on every site, so everybody knew what was going on.
And another question that I have, because I know that you were quite high up in the hierarchy. I mean, you had a lot of people. I mean,
Yeah, I could
yeah,
have been higher, but yes, I
yeah,
was
but
higher
you,
than a lot of people if you look at it that way. Yes.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I talked earlier today with a manager. He had like 60 employees. Then he had like the full control on that everybody could have the same picture of the outcome. But I mean, how many people did you have under your?
There were different people, different levels, and different people I was responsible for. So all
Yeah,
in
but
all,
I mean,
in my last corporate job, I was in charge of keeping over 140,000 people safe.
exactly.
And
So it was quite some way down to every single one of these 140,000 people. I mean,
yeah,
you didn't make this conversation with everyone. So
no,
you had a lot of managers that you needed to, because that is one thing that I really, I really like with you, is that you have made it in such a large scale.
yeah,
I mean, I have met many managers that have done it in their team or a bit smaller organizations where they have more direct contact with everyone.
yeah.
But how the did you make this in with this amount of people?
Um, with a whip and threats, no, no. So I mean, it's building trust, right? And there were people opposing and not thinking that it will work, and we had many discussions. But I had a large, phenomenal team when I worked for this huge company.
Your closest management.
So that's where we started, like with the safety huddles, like I mentioned before, that every morning you go through, you meet everybody for 5 minutes and you do a quick safety huddle saying that, okay, today it's snowing, so think about this, this, and this, and this is what we need to do today. And then, like I said before, every single conference call, everything started with a safety moment where you talk through it. So it was building a culture where everybody saw safety and food safety and quality as a routine, not a task. It was part of who we were. It was task. Now I have to think about putting a hard hat on.
Mm.
It was like part of who you were. You just wore a hard hat.
Mm.
It wasn't a task. Okay, checked off. I did it.
Mm.
Because then it has to come naturally to people. And that
Mm.
was a little bit difficult. There were people resisting, people not understanding. But once they get a wrench in their head, they realized, oh, this is why Martin says we need to wear a hard hat. And so building a culture, building trust. And there were people questioning me if this would work, but we showed the result. I mean, we dropped down employee injury frequency rate with normal improvement was like 2 or 3%, and we lowered it with 17 to 20%, which means that fewer people are going home injured, or to put it more positively, more people leave work with no injury and happy. So once you build that culture and you get people to understand that, it's once you have set that culture, I simplify it, but it's quite easy, because once the culture is there, it's part of it. So when the new people come in,
It's like a
you really
self-playing piano.
exactly, you don't really have
Mm.
to train them because they see what the
No.
culture is like.
No.
And we had in the end people helping each other and looking out for each other, uh, which they had not done before, because they were all, I'm my own, I'm looking after
Mm.
myself. But instead,
Mm.
hey, don't do that, you may trip or you may ruin your back, or let me help take that box down so you don't strain yourself. And it was fascinating to see.
Mm.
And like I said, I mean, the team there were some resistant people, but the majority was absolutely phenomenal.
Mm. If I would have followed you around for a week
Mm.
when you had, let's say, this last job at Sodexo, what would I have seen you doing? What would you do? What did you do more of, and what did you do less of that maybe other of your peers did?
It's quite interesting that you asked that question, because I talked to a friend about that every day, because I have a hard time answering phones, because I've developed a phone phobia somehow. Because my typical day when I worked from the home office or the other office, I spent from 5 o'clock to a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. on the phone, conference calls, talking to people, doing trainings and all that. And I just hated being on the phone because I felt non-productive. The remaining of the time, I tried to travel, and I traveled too much perhaps, but I visited. Of course, I couldn't visit all the 14,000 sites that we had in the US, but I always tried to go somewhere, be part of a meeting, be part of a training.
So you weren't that management team sitting in the conference room and making new PowerPoints and
Oh, I hated it. I
sending
absolutely.
out more information they don't understand. We need to clarify the goals. That was
Yeah.
not what you were doing, if I
You.
understand you right.
No, I was not. You could not find a more impatient person than me. If we had meetings in Gaithersburg with my peer team, and we sat in a conference room on the top floor for hours and hours and hours and listened to each other what we were doing, and I'm like, it's very good. I learned a lot from listening to them, but it's like I'm not productive here. I need to do something else, and I was always the one sitting looking at my phone to see what was going on, or sending messages or writing notes on my
Mm.
own, and perhaps not the most attentive student or person in those meetings, because we have way too many meetings in companies. We sit there in conference rooms and feel important and discuss things, and of course we need to make decisions, we need to drive things forward, but we spend way too much time in conference rooms and conference
Mm.
calls.
And
And
too far away from reality.
too far away. You have to go out, you have to go and look at the kitchens and the operations, you need to talk to people, you need to understand, you need to see what was going on.
So it was like management by talking or management by asking questions. Was that your leader style?
I mean, I don't know how to title it, but yeah, I was a nervous meeting person. I didn't like sitting in meetings. We had great internal meetings though in our team when we were down at Pepperdine University and things like that, where we got a lot of things accomplished, setting goals and definitions and such. They are important, but if you're not in contact with reality, you don't know what you're managing.
Exactly.
And that is very difficult.
And I really see this as a pattern with all, in my eyes, successful leaders. They are very close to reality, and they spend a lot of time out in reality, so to speak. Well, thank you so very much for helping me understand what you really did to create trust, to clarify outcome, and helping your people to do their job in a good way. And that also, like you said, giving positive feedback also make them proud, and how important that is for, I mean, that's also so important for our well-being, that we are seen as important people in the company. So it's time to end this discussion, and I think in the next episode will be a bit more theoretical, when I guess you can ask me, how does this actually works? But as usual, we leave our listeners with a question, and that is, where are you controlling how people work because the control is genuinely necessary? And where are you controlling it because letting go would make you uncomfortable?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
it's
can
hard.
give some thoughts
It's
and
hard to go.
chance to introspection about the way you look at your people.
Absolutely.
Thank you very, very much for this conversation.